Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. More specifically, we've been dealing with weapons. We've been adding some new weapons and we've been adding some special rules, both to those new weapons and to existing weapons. So that's part of what I would like to talk about in this video. The other part I would like to talk about is finishing off the skill rolls. So if you've been following this series anyway, you'll remember that we introduced the concept of skills a little while ago, where we have 12 broad classes of things that the player character or their companions can attempt, and each of the 12 is grouped into one of 4 groups, each of which relates to one of the attributes. So you have the strong-oriented skills, the smart-oriented skills, the sneaky-oriented skills, and the sexy-oriented skills. And usually, if someone's trying to do a strong-related task, they will roll and add their strong score. And so similarly in this one of these tasks, they would roll and add their smart score and so on. However, there are exceptions, and those exceptions are based on persona, which is this game's equivalent of character classes. So, for example, let's look at can fight. They're all called can something. Let's look at the fighting one. That's just got all ones, which means that now I'll ask you to ignore this first number for a while because I'll explain that in a second. But these ones are to do with the 4 sort of main personas in the game: the warrior, the scientist, the scoundrel, and the influencer, in that order. And they tell you what attribute the different personas use. So 1-1-1-1 just means the warrior uses attribute 1, which is strong. The scientist uses attribute 1, the scoundrel, and the influencer. So in this case, it's very simple. It's just everyone uses strength. Same with this one. But this one is a little bit different. Here we can see that the warrior has a score, a number 0, and 0 just means they automatically pass at the highest possible level. They don't actually have to roll. They're just considered to have done as well as they possibly can. The next persona, the scientist, uses attribute 4. So instead of using strong, they use sexy. The third persona, the scoundrel, does use attribute 1, strong. And the last persona, the influencer, uses their sneaky attribute. And when a particular persona uses a sort of an unusual attribute, sometimes that's a penalty and sometimes that's an advantage. And that's to do with, of course, what attributes that particular persona has. Because in this game, individual characters don't roll or choose their attributes. Your attributes are entirely derived from your persona, at least at the start of the game. So all warriors have the same set of stats to start with, all scientists, all scoundrels, all influencers. So all of that we'd already done. But there are some other personas that some of the companions might have. The player character can't have them, but the companions can have them. And they are for sort of less skilled civilian types, I guess you'd say. And they're divided into child, teen, adult, and elder. So it's just to do with age. And you can see if you look at their stats, they're quite a bit lower on average than the stats of what might be called the sort of the player character attributes. And thus far, I hadn't dealt with the possibility of what if you have a companion who's one of these personas and they have to roll. And the way that works is actually quite simple. They don't have any exceptions to the general rule. They just use the attribute that is to do with the group that the particular skill is in. So for all of these, they roll strong. Oops, sorry. For these three, they roll strong. For these three, they roll smart. These ones, they roll sneaky, and these ones, they roll sexy. So the way that these skills were set up before was something like this. I'll do it over here so that it's sort of easier to line it up with what's actually there. And let's... So I had it like this. And the reason I had it set up like that with these two empty quotes at the beginning is that the first slot of an array in Twine, as it is in a lot of computing languages, is number 0. It's not number 1, but number 0. And I find it counterintuitive to count from 0. So often I would sort of put like a couple of quotes or null or something like that, just to show that that slot's not used and just to count from 1. Well, instead of that, we're going to use that slot for the non-player character personas. So we just put 4 in these 3, 3 in these 3, 2 in these 3, and 1 in these 3. And then on the page where the skill roll happens, we have to make a distinction between player characters. Well, we already have a distinction between the player character and the companion, but now we have to have a distinction between the companions who are one of the sort of main personas and a companion who is one of the sort of NPC-only personas. So here's how we do it. We have if I underscore who is equal to 0, I underscore who is who has initiative. It will be, if we're here, it will be either a player character or a companion rather than an enemy. So if it equals 0, that's the player character. Now we have else if I underscore who 1 is less than 5. Well, is an array, stands for companion. It's an array which keeps track of a lot of different stuff about the companions, one of which is their persona. And if it's less than 5, that means their persona is either 1, 2, 3, or 4, which is the warrior, scientist, scoundrel, or influencer. In that case, we just keep the code that we already had. But now we have an else. And this will only happen if this isn't true, I underscore who is not equal to 0, so we're talking about a companion, and I underscore who 1 is not less than 5, meaning they won't be one of these 4, they'll be a child, teen, adult, or elder. So what do? Well, first of all, we print companion 1 or companion 2. That's pretty straightforward. We just need to tell the player what's happening. Companion 1 rolls, etc., etc. But slightly more involved, we need to find W and V. And what are W and V? W is the attribute to roll against, or 0 for automatic long success. 0 is that the state where you automatically pass and don't have to roll. Well, that doesn't apply to these personas. It's only for the warrior and scientist, etc. So it's the attribute to roll against. And V is the value of that particular attribute. So this one will be 1 if they're rolling against strong, and then we'll look in the relevant array and see what the value of strong is for this character. And the way we find that is we just look at skill Y. Y is the text file that tells us which skill we're rolling against, and we just look in slot 0. And then we look in ATT underscore PER. Now this is a little bit involved, so I'll type it out to make it a bit easier to follow. What we've got here is $com INI underscore who 1. So that is what persona they are. So we'll just call that persona. And we look in $ATT_PER, and the first slot is their persona, and the second slot is W, which is the attribute. And ATT_PER stands for attributes by persona. And it has other things. It has the names of the persona in there as well, I think. But the main bit of data it has the strong, sneaky, sexy, and smart attributes for all the different personas. So we simply, and the first dimension is the persona and the second dimension is the attribute. So we just look in there and we get the addition or subtraction that we're going to make to the roll of 2 dice, or the simulated roll of 2 dice. So that's how that works. It's fairly straightforward. They don't have any special exceptions. They just roll the sort of default attribute for that particular skill. Now, I've added a couple of weapons, so I'll talk about those. Sorry, I've added one weapon and I've changed a weapon. So I've added the shoddy flamethrower. There's not much to say about the shoddy flamethrower because while it does have a special feature, which is that it sort of does burning damage. I haven't coded that yet. I'm probably going to code that in the next couple of videos. So at the moment, it's just a matter of kind of listing its handedness and the damage of its attack and so on. But I did have to make a change to the katana because the person who sent me the document, they'd made a little bit of a mistake. They didn't want the katana. I remember that I said I wasn't quite sure why the katana has a range of mid. How come you can hit at range with a sword? And the answer is because you're not meant to, actually. You're meant to have 2 attacks which have a range of 0, which means only 1 range band away. So you might notice, okay, we've got slash and stab. They've got the same stats. What's the point of having 2 attacks that are the same? Well, the answer is that they're not the same. It's that, but the difference is a sort of special difference. It's one that we have to code specially. And what we're trying to get at here is that one of them uses strong and one of them uses sneaky. The way that it's worked so far is that all melee type of attacks use strong and all ranged attacks use sneaky. But the person whose game this is going to be wants a special exception to that rule, which is that the katana, you can use either. You can use a close range attack which uses strong. Well, that's just the default sort of way things work. But there's also a special attack that is close range but uses sneaky. And we have to code that specially. So how do we code that? Well, it's pretty straightforward, actually. We just put a little exception in the code where we're working out what attribute do we add to the roll and what attribute do we add to the damage. And it's pretty easy to see how it works. We look at WEA_ATT_X1, that stands for weapon attack. X is the name of the attack that we're using, like Katana 1 or Pistol 2 or something like that. If it's close range, this particular slot is the range. If the range is equal to 0, and now we add and, X does not equal Katana 1. So Katana 1 is an exception to this rule. If that's the case, then we set X2 equal to 1, meaning that we're going to use strong. And if that's not the case, then we set X2 equal to 3, meaning we're going to add attribute 3, which is sneaky. So this means that if we're using the attack Katana 1, then this will not trigger. This if will not trigger because X does equal Katana 1, and therefore we'll end up using the sneaky attribute for Katana 1. And we do the same thing if we happen to hit. We need to add sneaky to the damage rather than strong. Where is it? Yep, there it is. And it works exactly the same way. If WEA_ATT_X1 is equal to 0 and X is not equal to katana 1, then set W equal to 1, meaning we're going to use strong. And otherwise, set W equal to 3, meaning we're going to use sneaky. So this attack, katana 1, still has short range. You still can't attack hovering enemies or enemies that are too far away with it, but you get to use sneaky. Well, you get to use sneaky. I guess it's not always true that sneaky is better than strong, but for some personas you get to use sneaky, and for other personas you have to use sneaky, and people are going to have to remember which one does sneaky and which one does strong, and work that out by experiment. Basically, the way that it works is that it doesn't display that because it just has a name of the attack, like hit or throw. In this particular case, where's the katana? There it is. We have slash and stab, and the player, if they don't sort of remember it, they'll have to find out by experiment that slash is the one that uses sneaky and stab is the one that uses strong, and then choose the one that's, you know, better for the particular character. So that's what I've done in recent days. I'm going to continue to add more weapons, and I'm going to continue to add the special characteristics of weapons. Probably the burning attribute, which some flamethrowers and things have, might be next. But I will leave it there for now. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.